Good morning, everybody. My name is Chris Esbrook. I'm the founding partner at Esbrook PC in Chicago. I have the privilege of representing two former Northwestern assistant baseball coaches, Dusty Napoleon and John Strauss, along with the former director of operations for Northwestern Baseball, Chris Beacom, who is here to my right. On behalf of my clients, I filed a lawsuit today against Northwestern University for negligence because Northwestern allowed its former head coach of the baseball team, Jim Foster, to create an abusive, toxic, and dangerous environment for its baseball staff and for its student athletes. My client, Mr. Beacom, has prepared a short statement that he'd like to read today, and I'll give it to Mr. Beacom to read, please.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning. Today, I am speaking on behalf of myself, the former Director of Baseball Operations of Northwestern University, and my two assistant baseball coach colleagues. The three of us witnessed and experienced firsthand the abusive, toxic, and dangerous environment created by former Northwestern head coach Jim Foster. We reported Coach Foster's conduct to Northwestern, believing that they would do the right thing. Northwestern did not do the right thing. Instead, they swept our reports under the rug, putting their staff, student athletes, and reputation at risk. Northwestern stood by Coach Foster and got rid of the coaches that blew the whistle on him. And only when the media found out about Coach Foster's abuse did Northwestern choose to do something. I'm here today because I want real change at Northwestern. I want the university to take the safety of its student athletes and staff seriously and not ignore serious issues like the ones I and my former colleagues blew the whistle on. We believe that the only way to do this is to shine a light on Northwestern's failures, and that's what I'm here to do today. The three of us have been in baseball our whole lives. We love the game, and we love working with student athletes. We loved our jobs, and we loved what we believed Northwestern stood for. I first stepped foot on the campus of Northwestern University in the fall of 1985 as a student athlete. From that point, I represented Northwestern and its baseball program with integrity. First, as a student athlete, then as a baseball alum, and finally, as a baseball staff member. I am deeply and personally saddened that Northwestern has failed to live up to its standards. From the very beginning of Coach Foster's tenure, we witnessed his egregious behavior. Coach Foster exhibited a bullying and degrading attitude toward the staff, the student athletes, and even the student managers. We believed that Coach Foster was putting the health and safety of our student athletes at risk. We also believed that Coach Foster was violating NCAA recruiting rules. We knew that we could not just stand by and watch Coach Foster put our staff, players, and student managers in harm's way. So we made the decision to blow the whistle on what he was doing. In November of 2022, we reported Coach Foster's conduct to officials at Northwestern. They assured us that the university would take steps to investigate our concerns and protect the staff and all involved. We trusted them. That trust was misplaced. Instead, in February of 2023, almost 3 months after we filed our HR complaint, university officials decided to sweep it under the rug. Northwestern did not remove Coach Foster. Instead, Northwestern retaliated against us, first by demoting us and then by getting rid of us. Only when Coach Foster's conduct became public in July, almost 7 months after we blew the whistle, did Northwestern decide to terminate Coach Foster. By this time, the damage had already been done to us as whistleblowers. Our collective careers were over. We've come to realize that the only way true justice will be accomplished here is through the courts. As a result, we decided to hire Chris Esbrook and his team to represent us. Today, we filed a lawsuit against Northwestern University for retaliatory discharge, negligent hiring and supervision, as well as other claims. We are hoping that through this lawsuit, the truth will come out and Northwestern will change for the better.
Thank you, Chris. To add to Mr. Beacon's comments, so under Northwestern's watch, Coach Foster engaged in abusive, racist, sexist behavior, encouraged his staff members to violate NCAA rules, and discouraged players from seeking appropriate medical care, student athletes. What my clients did was they did the right thing. They went to Northwestern, they blew the whistle on Coach Foster's conduct, and what Northwestern did is Northwestern told these gentlemen to trust Northwestern because it would do the right thing. It did not do the right thing. Instead, during its investigation of these comments, Mr. Beacom and his two assistant coaches, Mr. Napoleon and Mr. Strauss, emailed Northwestern time and again, 8 or more times, asking for help and asking for Northwestern to do the right thing for these student athletes and for the staff. And to each of those emails, Northwestern didn't respond. Not once. Instead, here's what Northwestern did. When the investigation had completed, the day before the first game of the season, Northwestern told these gentlemen that what they had said was true. Northwestern found that Coach Foster engaged in bullying, abusive, racist, and sexist behavior. But they didn't suspend Coach Foster, they didn't place him on leave, and they didn't terminate him. What they did was they told these gentlemen and these student athletes, just deal with it. Northwestern says it doesn't tolerate conduct in the workplace that violates its code of conduct. But it did. It did tolerate it, and it endorsed it. Northwestern says that it prohibits retaliation, but that's exactly what it did. On July 10th, months after these gentlemen blew the whistle, only on July 10th, when reports of Coach Foster's behavior became public, only then did Northwestern do the right thing and fire Coach Foster. But by that time, it was too late for these gentlemen and for the student athletes that had to suffer under Coach Foster's watch. Thank you.
Any questions?
Quick question, just to clarify,
Yep.
You said you took your allegations to Northwestern officials. Can you just clarify how it was reported? Was it an email? Was it a formal, what is the process?
Of course.
And who was it to?
Of course, yeah, I'll take that. Mr. Beacom and Mr. Napoleon and Mr. Strauss first reported this behavior in a conversation with 2 members of the athletic department. Then they submitted in November of 2022 a formal written complaint to the HR department of the Northwestern Athletic Department.
And that's the response that you referenced a short time ago, that had those findings against Coach Foster.
Totally correct. Yes,
So there was
exactly.
verbal and written.
Verbal and written, exactly right.
Is there any allegation that the university should have known these things before hiring Coach Foster?
There is. That's part of our complaint. We think that discovery is going to show that there is long evidence that Coach Foster had engaged in this conduct in prior jobs, and that Northwestern failed to do the appropriate diligence on Coach Foster before they hired him. Honestly, this was not a mystery that Coach Foster engaged in this kind of behavior. If Northwestern was doing its job, it should have known this, and it shouldn't have hired him, and it shouldn't have put Mr. Beacom and his colleagues in this kind of position.
All of this is contained in the complaint. I have copies of the complaint here as well as proof of the e-filing this morning. I have copies of also Mr. Chris Beacom's statement, if anybody needs a copy of it. Are there any other questions? Let me just
Another
check.
question for Mr. Beacom. As a former player, coach, someone who was pre-involved with the Northwestern community athletic program, what has this been like, this sort of fallout that we've seen the last month or so? For you personally, is this a relief? Is this disheartening? What has this been like, as we've seen not just in the baseball program, but across several of the athletic programs? You can answer that if you want to.
It's disappointing, but I know that institutions are only as strong as the people who run them. And unfortunately, in this case, the people running, in particular the athletic department, are not strong.
Okay.
Just one other question. I mean, following up on that, obviously, there have been all kinds of allegations and lawsuits filed against Northwestern, and this, you can kind of clarify, this really isn't a part of, this is sort of separate, right?
The only thing we know, this lawsuit is separate from the other lawsuits. I'm not going to speculate about, whether this is athletic department wide. The only thing that we know is this, what's contained in this lawsuit and with the baseball team.
Okay, as you know, this is also on Zoom, and this is actually being taken live on a few stations. And we have a question coming in here from ESPN. And it's regarding the demotion and ending of the contract. If Northwestern had intended to make a coaching change after the season, would it have been a responsibility to honor the contracts?
I think that's a more complicated legal question that we're going to address in the lawsuit.
Thank you.
This was filed in Cook County Circuit Court, right?
That's correct.
And then we have a question here. How did the athletic department, this is from Zoom, how did the athletic department respond to the concerns about the safety of the student athletes?
I'll tell you. So from what we understand, as part of this investigation that Northwestern undertook, it did not interview, we believe, the players affected by the decision of Coach Foster to discourage proper medical care. It did not interview medical professionals on this subject. So as far as we are aware, Northwestern did not do what they should have done in the face of these very, very serious allegations. And the effect is, the outcome is, nothing happened. There was no change to Coach Foster discouraging appropriate medical treatment.
Follow up as far as the coaches currently, since you've been released from Northwestern, are you employed elsewhere now? What are your prospects? Where does that stand?
I'll take it. Mr. Beacom, along with Mr. Napoleon, Mr. Strauss, none of them are employed right now, and I think their prospects of employment are seriously harmed by this experience for a variety of reasons.
Question for you over here.
Mm-hmm.
This is it was mentioned that stories came out about this behavior in July. And those of us who wrote those stories, since then we've gotten a lot of responses from Coach Foster's former colleagues, former players. And overwhelmingly, they have all claimed that the coaches, particularly Coach Napoleon, had wanted that head coaching job and had been passed over for it. And the implication, of course, I don't have to explain. Can you comment on that at all?
Yeah, of course. So I don't know the comments that you're referring to, and I don't think any of them affect the truthfulness of these statements. And because this is true, and because these gentlemen had to experience Coach Foster's conduct, and because the student athletes had to experience Coach Foster's conduct, whether any particular person, what they want to do with their career in a long-term basis is irrelevant to the serious allegations that they're making.
Okay, we also have a question here from Law 360 online on Zoom. What was the official reason given, if any, for their demotions?
No official reason.
Okay? And are any former players planning to join this lawsuit or file separate lawsuits, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, I don't know that. The only thing I'm focusing on is my three clients, Mr. Beacom, Mr. Strauss, and Mr. Napoleon.
Okay. Do we have any other questions from people here? I see that, I think that's all that we have from online. Then thank you, everybody, for your time. I have the extra statements here if all you gentlemen would like to come this way at the end of the press conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for coming.